Hello friends, I am Dr. Ketan Tatu. I am founding editor of a wetland related eMagazine Jalaplavit, having ISSN 23211881. Jalaplavit is being published since 2009, and though it has seen several ups and downs in its considerably long journey, I am glad that we are able to keep it continued even in 2023, and that is mainly due to various wetland enthusiasts who have been contributing as authors for this e-magazine, which is a very humble effort. It is totally a voluntary effort. We do not charge authors for giving space for their article in our e-magazine, and neither we charge our esteemed readers. It is totally free, and that is the beauty of this humble effort called Jalplavit e-magazine. This time, after some delay, this new issue being released. It is volume number 13, issue number 1, February March 2023 issue. And with the launch of this issue, we are marking two important days. That is World Wetlands Day 2023, which was observed all over the world last month, that is on 2nd February 2023. And with the launch of this issue, we are also marking the World Wildlife Day 2023, which was observed all over the world just a couple of days back, that is 3rd March 2023. Friends, these 2 days are really important for conservation of wetlands and their wise use. Coming to this recent issue which we have brought out, that is volume number 13, number 1, February March 2023. I am glad to launch it today. And with the launch of this issue, I have started a unique effort that I have invited some of the authors, and we have requested them to talk about their article as a part of this launching of the new issue, I would say, program of this new issue. Not all authors were able to contribute, but I'm glad that at least 4-5 authors have shown their willingness to talk to wetland enthusiasts about their articles. This issue is very interesting because it has multiple kinds of articles about wetlands. There is an article on Herpetofauna of Myristica Wetlands. Then there is an article of the Mangrove Monkey, article on Mangrove Monkey. Also, there is an article on a visit of Hortobagy National Park, Hungary, Whisker Tun in Nalsrovar. There is also an article on a wetland of Assam called Maguri-Motapung. I hope I have pronounced it properly. And thus there are about 10 articles in this issue, and they cover a wide variety of topics related to wetlands. Friends, let us talk about wetlands as a part of this launching event. It will be useful for our young readers and young people who have been attending this launching program. First of all, I would talk a little about wetlands and their problems and their importance, and then I would invite our authors one by one to talk about the articles. Friends, wetlands are basically the land areas that are covered with shallow water, or the land areas that are saturated with water. Okay, so they are wet lands, right? The term wetland is very meaningful. One of the well-known utility of wetlands is that they act as a buffer against the flood. The best example is Pantanal wetland, which is situated in 3 countries, a very huge wetland, very huge freshwater wetland. Wetland products are widely consumed by human beings, like food like rice. Rice is nothing but a wetland plant, and another plant called trapa, which is called singada in Hindi. And they also provide plants like lotus and lilies, which are widely used for religious purpose. They have economic values also. For example, wetlands are constructed as a industrial pollution treatment, and they are also useful for fulfilling the need of water for irrigation. Wetlands are useful for recreation and tourism, and one of the most important utility of wetlands for humanity is climate change mitigation and adaptation. So undoubtedly we, the human beings, cannot survive without wetlands, but modern man is surviving at the cost of wetlands. So that is really an unfortunate affair, that we depend a lot on wetlands for our survival, but we don't bother about survival of wetlands. Okay, we pollute the wetlands, then we drain the wetlands, we dredge the wetlands, we fill the wetlands, and we dump solid waste in the wetlands. So a lot of encroachment of wetlands is going on in search of additional land for commercial purposes or agricultural purposes. So we are really doing a lot of injustice to wetlands. And when we started Jalplavit, our humble expectation that this magazine will contribute in a small way in creating appreciation for wetlands by people, and creating awareness about significance of wetlands. If we are remembering World Wetlands Day, we should not forget the World Wildlife Day also, and it is very much applicable to wetlands, because wetlands are rich with aquatic wildlife. Not only aquatic wildlife, various forms of terrestrial wildlife also depend on wetlands for getting food or water. So The global theme for World Wildlife Day is Partnership for Wildlife Conservation. So, with this much of information about wetlands and making all of you aware about the significance of World Wetlands Day and World Wildlife Day, I would now like to invite our authors. In this issue, authors of I think 4 articles have shown willingness to talk about their respective articles. I would first like to invite Priya Ranganathan, who has contributed 2 articles in this issue. One is on Herpetofauna of Myristica Swamps and another on Mangrove Monkey. Both articles are very, very interesting. Priya Ranganathan is a PhD student at ETRI, Bengaluru. She studies eco-hydrology, biodiversity and ecosystem services of Myristica Swamps. She is founder and editor of Youth for Nature eMagazine. Priya is an avid science writer with over 40 articles published in Indian media and international literary journals. So, without wasting time, I would invite Priya Ranganathan to talk about her 2 articles, one after the other. The Herpetofauna of Myristica Swamps and Mangrove Monkey.
Hello, my name is Priya Ranganathan and I'm proud to be one of the authors in this issue of Jalaplavit Wetlands eMagazine. Today I'll be talking to you briefly about my article on the Herpetofauna of Myristica Swamp Forests of the Western Ghats. So let's just dive right in. The Western Ghats is one of the world's hottest biodiversity hotspots, and this means that there are species found here and ecosystems in this area that are found nowhere else on Earth. And these are called endemic species. Endemic species are native to the Western Ghats, and many of them are actually endangered as well because they have very specific habitat requirements, and without the resources that the habitat provides, they find it very difficult to survive and run the risk of extinction. The Western Ghats has at least 325 globally threatened species according to the IUCN Red List. And actually 225 species of these are amphibians, with over 92% of these amphibians being endemic to the region. So amphibians are quite undiscovered compared to other biodiversity in the Western Ghats and in India in general. Until the turn of the 21st century, most people really didn't focus on funding projects to study amphibians or reptiles. They just weren't considered important enough. But what we've realized is that their diversity may actually be a lot higher than we currently estimate. I mean, between 2006 and 2015, 103 new species of amphibians were described from the Western Ghats alone. So within the Western Ghats, there's a very unique ecosystem known as the Myristica Swamp Forest, which is a type of freshwater swamp which falls within the wet evergreen forest patches. And these swamps used to once be interconnected across the Western Ghats, from the northern Western Ghats of Sindhudurg in Maharashtra down into the southern Western Ghats of Kerala. However, today, because of habitat fragmentation, especially the destruction of relic forest, primary forests, most of which were wet evergreen, due to the rise of agriculture and areca plantations, coffee plantations, teak plantations, we've seen that these swamps have been highly fragmented. Now they only exist in small pockets. And with them, the species that live in these swamps are confined to these small pockets of land that's steadily being encroached. Swamps are extremely unique systems, much like the estuarine mangrove swamps that we've seen in the Sundarbans and along the coastline, both in the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal. Myristica swamps have tree species that have adapted to life in waterlogged conditions. So just as mangroves have roots that prop them above the water surface, we see the same thing in Myristica swamps. There are two species of trees from the family Myristicaceae called Myristica fatua and Gymnacranthera canarica. And both of these species have evolved to survive in waterlogged soils by having knee roots and prop roots or stilt roots. And these root systems have tiny breathing pores called lenticels that allow them to respire despite the water levels being quite high, especially in the monsoon. Swamps are typically fed by perennial streams, which means that the stream water is flowing year round, and the water table is actually very high. It's at the level of the bottom of the swamp. So we have a strong groundwater influence and a strong surface water influence. So the hydrology of swamps is constantly flowing, which makes them a prime source of water for a lot of wildlife, as well as a habitat in and of itself that has a really high ecosystem service value. So right now, what we've come to understand is that amphibians serve as indicator species, which means that they're highly sensitive taxa, and even a small change in the quality of water or soil in the Myristica swamp will be seen in the populations of amphibians. So we'll see a drastic drop in amphibian populations or even malformations in frogs, which are like deformities occurring in frogs due to an excess of pollutants, heavy metals, pesticides, fertilizers coming from upstream plantations that are maybe leaching into the swamps. So studying amphibians and gives us a really good insight into what the quality of these swamps are and what kind of pressures they're facing. So let's go quickly and look at some of the species of amphibians that we find in swamps, and we'll touch on reptiles as well. There was a study from the Myristica swamps of Kerala, the southern Western Ghats, that found 56 species of amphibians. And what the researchers found is that Myristica swamps are a hotbed of amphibian diversity even within the biodiversity hotspot that is the Western Ghats. Some amphibians, like the Myristica swamp tree frog, Mercurana myristica palustris, are swamp specialist species, which means they're only found in the Myristica swamps and their adjacent water bodies. So the Myristica swamp tree frog is only known to be in one reserve forest of Kerala's swamps. So it's a very tiny range for a very rare species. It was also recently discovered in 2013, and it breeds in the pre-monsoon season, lays its eggs in burrows in the soil right on the bank of the water within that swampy environment. And tadpoles, when they hatch, immediately swim in the water. They're entirely aquatic, unlike the adults, which are tree frogs. Another unique species is the Micrysales genus of frogs, or the dancing frogs. And dancing frogs are funny little creatures. They breed in the monsoon in the Western Ghats, and that too within Myristica swamps, because they require that slow moving water. And they actually got their name as dancing frogs due to this unique foot flagging behavior that they display during the mating season. So typically in the mating season, the males are going to climb up onto rocks and they call from these rocks, which are located in the swampy stream. And these white sacs inflate on their throat, and they also kick their back leg in a display to attract the attention of females. So this behavior is considered dancing. So again, eggs in this case are laid in the stream bed, and the reason this works is because the streams move very sluggishly in swamps due to the high density of roots and the thick soil, and so water percolates. It tends to slow and hold within the swamp, which means that the eggs are not washed away downstream. And it's very fascinating to know that Micrysales as a genus evolved directly with its habitat. So it developed along with the swamps nearly 85 million years ago. So this is a relic species of frog, as well as a relic species of swamp. A relic type of habitat, the swamp habitat. And it's a unique example of how a creature has evolved alongside its habitat. So it wasn't the habitat came first, then the species developed. It was that they came together. So it's a very interesting piece of India's ecological history. Now we could also talk about many more species of frogs that are found in Myristica swamps, but I think it would be nice to touch briefly on reptiles and their diversity. So 21 reptile species are known from swamps, of which 13 are snakes. Some of them are found elsewhere, like the king cobra, which we can see sometimes king cobras battling in swamps. They tend to build nests on the slopes that lead down to the swamps. So the swamp is in the valley, and the slopes on either side that lead down are prime nesting habitat for king cobras. But there are two species that are endemic to the Western Ghats that we find in swamps: the Malabar pit viper, which is a venomous snake, and Gunther's supple skink, which is a skink species, not a snake. So I'd like to talk briefly about the Malabar pit viper because it's one of my favorite snakes. It is venomous. It comes in multiple morphs, and one of the morphs which I see very often in the monsoon season is the mottled green morph, which is a greenish grayish coloration. Now, pit vipers tend to be completely out of sight during the dry season, and they are suddenly everywhere during the monsoon. And where do we see them? Usually on the roots of Myristica trees. So they lie along the root and they blend right in, and they wait just above the water level there for prey to go by. And their prey can range from frogs, fish, lizards, small mammals, birds that are by the water. And they were very powerful, quick strike, like all vipers do. And they can be seen basking on these roots during the daytime if you were lucky enough to stumble into a swamp in the monsoon. Another really interesting species is the Indian flying lizard, which is a species of agamid lizard, and it's mostly found in the Western Ghats. So it's a arboreal lizard found in trees. And what it does, it has a flap of skin called the patagium, which is attached to its rib cage under the arms, and it glides like a hang glider from tree to tree. So it's an exciting sight to see if you're lucky enough to walk into a Myristica swamp and lucky enough to stumble across one of these creatures. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this brief look into the fascinating world of Myristica swamps and their herpetofauna, the amphibians and reptiles that call them home. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy reading the article as well, and I'm always available for any further information. Hello again. So, my name is Priya Ranganathan, and I'm a wetland ecologist, and I work in the Western Ghats. But one of my second article today is actually hailing from an entirely different part of the Indian subcontinent, the Nicobar Islands. And the Andaman and Nicobar Islands are an island chain off the coast of the Bay of the eastern coast of India in the Bay of Bengal. They're very close to Indonesia, and we find over there a very interesting, strange species of monkey, the Nicobar long-tailed macaque. So now the Nicobar long-tailed macaque, it's also a subspecies of the crab-eating macaque, Macaca fascicularis, and it's native to the Nicobar Islands. So it's listed as vulnerable on the IUCN Red List, and it's also one of the least studied primates of India, but it occurs in one of the world's most biodiverse biodiversity hotspots, or hottest biodiversity hotspots, the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So its population has not really often been surveyed. There were a few studies. There was one in 2000, one in 2006, and then one after a gap in 2014. And what we've really seen from these studies is that the biggest incident that has impacted the population of the Nicobar long-tailed macaque was the Indian Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004. So now, I mean, I was in the eastern coast of India at that time in Chennai, and I experienced the trauma of the tsunami. And now you can imagine in the remote island chain where the sea level is very close to the estuarine habitat that these monkeys forage in. These monkeys tend to live in the mangrove swamp forests lining the edge of the Nicobar Islands. And you can imagine that these groups of macaques were very highly affected because their habitat would have been almost entirely wiped out by the tsunami. The suitable habitat vanished, food resources declined, and as a result, the macaque population also declined. But it started to increase. They started to increase again towards 2014. In the late 2000s, they would have started to increase again. I mean, what they found was that there were 88 groups in 2000, and then in 2006, 2 years after the tsunami, there were only 40 groups of macaques. But in 2014, when they came back, we were back up to 79 groups. So that shows that the population has started to recover. Now, this monkey, which is a species of macaque but looks quite different from the macaques we are used to, it's quite stout, squarish, large set compared to the bonnet and rhesus macaques that we see in India, peninsular India. They're typically found on three islands of the Nicobar chain: the Great Nicobar, Little Nicobar, and Kachel. These are the three islands. It's found in mangrove swamp forests as well as lowland forests up to 600 meters elevation. But very occasionally you can find it in plantations and gardens. It's a monkey after all. Monkeys do love to forage and they travel large distances. And the Nicobar Islands provide vast intact forests, so it's easy for these monkeys to migrate without much disturbance. Preferentially, the long-tailed macaque feeds on fruits, but it's also been seen to feed on a lot of different, plant products. In mangroves, however, it's usually found eating crabs, frogs, shrimp, and even young octopi. And they usually fight aggressively over fruit. So it's understood to be a very important part of their diet by researchers. Another component of their diet is coconut, which is grown regularly across the island, both in plantations as well as wild. And it has a long continuous fruiting season, coconut, which is why coconuts of different maturities are often found across the island. And that means they're available on trees, fallen on the ground as well. And the macaques will eat the endosperm of the coconut and they also drink the water. So they've actually been observed plucking the coconuts from this tree and twisting it near the stalk to crack it, and then they also pound the shell until it cracks open and they can access the fleshy endosperm that they like to eat. So macaques tend to spend a large amount of their day foraging. So they invest the most energy in foraging, and that means they also have to spend a lot of time traveling between foraging sites. So typically the midday hours are spent resting, early morning, late evening is spent in foraging. Groups tend to be composed of female macaques, mostly with a few satellite males, and females tend to stay in their natal groups, the groups they were born in, and they pass it on to their daughters. Their daughters also stay within the group, whereas males leave the group and small bands of male macaques will be found across the islands, and they will try to mate with the females whenever they can. The ranking is really obvious even in males and in females. So with the ranking, the most aggressive and the highest ranked individual, both female and male, also get the highest likelihood of mating and the largest choice of potential mates as well. And we've seen that the major threats to the Nicobar long-tailed macaque is mostly habitat loss related. Many coastal areas on the Nicobar Islands have been converted to coconut and banana plantations, and this is for the indigenous populations' benefit as well. The most damage to native habitat of the macaque was sited on Kachel Island, where there are high densities of indigenous population settlements, human population settlements. So nearly 600 hectares of primary forest on Kachel Island was replaced by rubber plantations. And there's a fruit of the tree called pandanus, which is a tree that grows in these swampy environments. And it also forms a major part of the Nicobar long-tailed macaque's diet. And this was one of the main trees that was replaced by rubber plantations. Another cause of habitat destruction on both Great Nicobar and Kachel Island is logging, and illegal logging in particular. So we see actually a very unique parallel here to what's seen in the lion-tailed macaque, which is another rare macaque species found in the Western Ghats. So both the Nicobar long-tailed macaque and the lion-tailed macaque rely heavily on these intact forests and for resources, for traveling, for foraging. And what we see is the rise of plantation land use conversion is really high in both the Western Ghats biodiversity hotspot and the Andaman and Nicobar biodiversity hotspot. So it's impacted these two monkeys, which are both rare, which are both uniquely specialized to their habitats in two very different parts of India. but we see the exact same trend in both, which is quite frightening because the lion-tailed macaque is endangered, and right now the Nicobar long-tailed macaque is listed as vulnerable with deficient data, and we don't want it to become one more of those endangered or critically endangered species. So thank you so much for joining me today and learning a little more about the Nicobar long-tailed macaque. I hope you've learned something. I hope you found it interesting. And if you like the article and you'd like to know more, I'm happy to discuss it anytime. Thank you.
That was a very interesting talk by Priya Ranganathan, and I'm sure that readers would enjoy reading both of her articles in this latest issue of Jalplavit, February March 2023. The second author who has shown willingness to interact about his article is Mr. Kaushik, Mr. K. Kaushik, who has written an article on a visit to Hortobagy National Park, Hungary. Mr. Kaushik is a PhD candidate at University of Pécs, Hungary. His current research focuses on the herb layer community and invasion ecology of a temperate monodominant plant species. He had completed his MPhil and MSc degrees from the Department of Botany, University of Delhi, India, in plant biotechnology and botany, respectively. He has been a summer research fellow 2013 Indian Academies of Sciences and a stipendium Hungaricum fellow 2015 UGC TPF venture with 8 science or outreach publications. In some of them are in press and some are already published. So now I would invite Mr. K. Kaushik to talk about his article in this issue of Jalaplavit.
Hello everyone. First of all, thank you for the short invitation. So I will try to make up as much as possible. Second is apology for the little bit of the rough sound because my machine's fan. It's not working properly. Anyway, starting. So what we are going to do is we will go through the article as a slide, and I will add the anecdotes as we go along the article. Okay. So usually I have a habit of writing this kind of pieces, which is part of science and communications. So, and this was written after so I should start from here. So we had this biannual meeting, PhD meeting, which is most of the European ecologists and botanists. We have a kind of retreat, semi-formal setting. We present our work, we discuss the ecology and botany things. So this was the 9th PhD meeting, which I can see here, and these two people are our guide for the trip. So we had this, and after that we had a trip to the first Hungarian national park, which you could see here. This is map of Hungary, and this Hortobagy National Park is the first. It's very famous, and it has the UNESCO title. When you will go through the article, you will see the more details. So we went there as a trip. It's an ecological excursion, and so we started with this how should I say, the milepost, and we had a first encounter with one of the most interesting feature of this landscape. That was this. You cannot see in the picture actually, but we are standing on one of it. So these are the burial heap of soil. In the ancient time, the early settler, they used to do it. So, and the Balash, our guide, he explained us that how they did it, how they used to do it. But what we learned, and my take was, the ecological side of these things. So even it was a part of cultural, let's say, their culture, but still it has a potential of preserving their biodiversity in a way, and it is documented. Many of the publications which Polash and his wife has published, they have mentioned this. So anyways, going further, we went there. It was a one-day trip, and it was I would say not so comprehensive, not as much as comprehensive as I have written in this article. Of course, every piece of when we write this kind of essays, we put a lot of research thing also, which we were not able to do during the excursion. So I had done the same. So one thing that I would like to say while I'm sharing this, so I think I have a habit of doing this kind of reporting whenever I visit any of the let's say ecological excursion. This is my third, fourth venture, and I have written about Poland and Czech Republic wetlands already in the Jalaplavit. So, and this piece has the same sort of I would say perspectives. Like we went there and I was like, okay, when you visit as a reporter, like you think as a, you listen more, let's say carefully, you ask more questions, and it's a better way of learning, as I found it. And when you write it on a blog or on a magazine, or when you publish on LinkedIn or Twitter, more people are going to be aware of it. So then I sort of course it was part of the, let's say, trip. We was not able to see these many of the picture, but they are the characteristic of this landscape, so I just put them with the references. But I could see these little seasonal lakes and this above ground water table, which has different kind of vegetation there. One of my favorite plant I could recall from here was this was the Camphorasma annua. It's a halophyte. So as I was saying, that one of my favorite plant was the Camphorasma annua, with this pinkish flower thing. So for sure I have tried to document the flora and fauna as well, but these heap of soil, as we call them, Kurgan, as I mentioned earlier, also they are fantastic island of biodiversity because they are made up of topsoils. So I am not touching most of the detail because that could be read when you is going to see this in this let's say article. So what I would like to add, one of more anecdote is the inspiration behind this was that in the PhD meeting we had a group discussion about the science and the sort of responsibilities, I think scientists' responsibilities, and the opening theme was let's say that scientist, we as a scientist or ecologist or botanist, the people who are practicing the science, we should have a dual responsibilities. First, A is to do the science, and second is do the advocacy also, because I think there science is there that climate is changing, or let's say where the icebergs are melting and these species are going to extinction, wetlands are disappearing. But the thing is, on the front of advocacy, there are merely any, I would say, there are not much of the commotions. So the idea of writing these kind of science outreach article is to sort of, let's say, aware the masses about it, because we as a practitioner of ecology or botany or whatever science we are doing, is we pretty much understand the seriousness of any of the topic which we are dealing with. But the thing is, we need to find a tribe where we can sort of share and encourage each other. It can be a Twitter thread, of course. Like, let's say I'm going to put this on the Twitter, so like, hey guys, I wrote this and this, and maybe they want to read about it and they would understand the, let's say, I have written here, so like a few of the migratory species which in this great plain of Hungary, they have little seasonal lakes and the water bodies which most of the Eurasians bird, they have this migratory, I don't know, halt or stop, let's say. I'm not sure whether they breed there or not. And as like what I know a very little bit, in a pastoralist community in India, they do have this similar kind of sort of setup. They rear the cows and sheep and the fallows for their better, I think, adapted one. And yeah, I think the next what I have written is yeah, do the SWOT analysis. Just, of course, like as usual, every landscape is sort of threatened by the changing climate, global climate changing. Yeah, that's the one of the, I would say, the utmost importance. We as a community of science people, we should have sort of some collective activism thing. Yeah. And on the last note, I would like to sort of share one of my best learning from this trip, that I study as a forest ecology, as you can see in my bio, that I am a kind of typical forest ecologist person. But the thing is, for me, just planting a tree was like solution to everything. But visiting these kind of places, which I already sort of highlighted here, was that afforestation or rewilding or putting trees everywhere is not sort of solution for every climate or carbon sequestration related things. We need a grassland also, we need a wetland also, we need these open spaces where the community which are adapted from millennia, they are going to play a pivotal role dealing with the as a, I don't know, stakeholder. So at the end, I would like to sort of re-emphasize that we should, I mean, what one take home that I would like to sort of reiterate, whenever you are visiting any of the places, be it a national park or wetland or any of the natural sort of the last thing that I forgot to mention is if you have any sort of follow-up, so please feel free to write me on LinkedIn or ResearchGate, or either you can, nowadays I'm kind of active on the Twitter also, so you can find Sapiens Myopia and we can discuss further. Thank you very much, and I appreciate the editorial team of Jalaplavit for keeping this alive, and I wish you all the best.
That was a very interesting talk by Mr. K. Kaushik regarding Hortobagy National Park in Hungary, which is also a Ramsar site that was declared in 1979. Now I would invite Mr. Kunal Chanda, who has written an article for Jalplavit issue, this Jalplavit issue, that is February March 2023. The article is titled Community-Based Conservation Endeavour of Maguri-Motapung Wetland in Assam, which is in northeast India. I hope I have pronounced the name of that wetland more or less correctly. Mr. Kunal Chanda is from Tinsukia district, Assam, and he is pursuing his doctoral studies in animal ecology and wildlife biology from Guwahati University, Assam. He has worked extensively with Assam State Biodiversity Board for more than 3 years, promoting biodiversity conservation and sustainable use of bioresources. He is now currently engaged as a UNDP NBA BSIP intern. His interest lies in the field of wetland ecology with particular focus on avifauna, community-based conservation, and documentation of traditional knowledge. So let us listen to Mr. Kunal Chanda, who is going to talk about his article in Jalplavit, February March 2023.
Hello everyone, my name is Kunal Chanda and I'm the author of the article Community-Based Conservation Endeavour of Maguri-Motapung Wetland, a wetland in Assam, Northeast India. So in this article I talk about Maguri-Motapung Wetland, which is located in the easternmost part of Assam in the Tinsukia district. The etymology of its name, Maguri-Motapung, can be divided into two, where Maguri translates to the Assamese name for the walking catfish, which is scientifically called as Clarius batrachus, while Motapung is the name of an adjacent village that surrounds the wetland. This picturesque wetland, which is located in Tinsukia district, is home to about 36 species of mammals, 500 species of aquatic and grassland birds, and over 108 species of indigenous fishes that inhabit this wetland. The primary occupation of the wetland dependent communities is fishing, but in recent years, due to overexploitation and improper fishing techniques, it has resulted in reduction of the catch size of the indigenous fishes. So the wetland dependent communities have therefore turned over a new leaf by taking up ecotourism as an alternative livelihood prospect. This act therefore serves as an impetus to address the growing issue of taking up conservation of the native biodiversity, as well as leading to their financial goals of the communities. The wetland also lies in the adjacent vicinity of an oil rig site of Bagjan that is located at approximately 10 kilometers from the wetland. Pandemic in 2020, a catastrophic oil spill in 2020 brought about irreparable changes to its wetland ecosystem, which threatened the survival of the native biodiversity as well as brought about loss of income of the communities. This wetland, which lies in the adjacent vicinity of the Degrading National Park, has not been offered with any protection under any stringent laws. But a proposal from Assam Forest Department to the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change in 2017 intends to extend the eco-sensitive zone of the Degrading National Park from 340 square kilometers to 620 square kilometers. This proposal, if approved, will encompass the entire extent of the Maguri-Motapung bill and therefore call for an immediate halt on any detrimental activities that are threatening this wetland under the provisions of the Environmental Protection Act of 1986. Furthermore, the Institute of Resource Management under ISSN has also prepared a local wetland management plan in the year 2018, which has been submitted to the Tinsukia District Authority for its approval, but its current stages, it's pending. If it is approved, this wetland plan shall call for a total halt on all detrimental activities that are threatening the native biodiversity as well as the people that are reliant on it for sustenance and survival. Thank you.
Thank you, Kunal Chanda, for your nice talk about your article. Now, one article remains whose authors have spared time today for talking about their article, and this article is artificially dug sand quarry transformed into an abode of wetland birds in Salem, Tamil Nadu. That is the title of this article, and there are rather multiple authors for this article: Anisha Sankar Narayanan, Sangavi Danpal, Mehabharati Senthil Kumar, and Tirushentil Nathan Parthasarthi. I beg your pardon if I have pronounced the names little bit wrongly. All these authors are from Periyar University. Anisha is a PhD student in zoology in Periyar University, She is studying the gut microbiome, diet, and ecological role of elephants in Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve, India. Sangvi Dhanpal is a doctorate student in Periyar University, Salem. She is studying the spider ecology in Salem. Meha Bharati Senthil Kumar is a master student in zoology at Periyar University and is working with bat roosting and breeding ecology. He is actively involved in bat conservation. Thirushenthil Nathan Parthasarathi is a professor in zoology at Periyar University and he has expertise in bat ecology and ecological role of bats. So let us understand what they want to say about their article through a small video. So with that, we have interacted with about four authors, or rather authors of four articles in this issue, in this new issue of Jalplavit, February March 2023. It could be much nicer if more authors could spare time for talking to us, but even and this is also good. All the authors who have spare time today made our program very interesting today, and I'm thankful to them for sparing the time to talk to us.
Good day to one and all present here. Myself, P.S. Anisha. I am doing my PhD under the guidance of Professor P. Nathan in the Department of Zoology, Periyar University, Salem, Tamil Nadu. I, along with my colleagues D. Sangavi and S. Mehabharati, has observed an interesting fact behind our university. We have seen the transition of a barren land to a wetland that is spread across 125 hectares behind our university. So we thought of sharing our observation regarding the journey from a barren land to a wetland in this special occasion. We all know that Mother Nature can repair itself. But with little human activity, the act of repairing or regenerating can be exponentially speeded up. That's what happened behind our university. Behind the university, a plot has been barren land for about 24 years. The particular plot was dug for soil just for 6 months. After that, the department has left it undisturbed. In the subsequent rainy season, the area was filled by rain. Initially, people thought of it as just a water clogging or something which might get evaporated in the subsequent summer. But the water body sustained. Since 2019, the small water body began to get in depth, and now it has become widespread to about 125 hectares. That 125 hectare of water body is now supporting number of families. I state human families. Now the wetland is becoming a main important water source for most of the agriculture fields surrounding the area, and even some of the person has been engaged in fishing at regular routines in the particular wetland for commercial purposes. The presence of a wetland attracts so many water birds. Since 2018, we have seen number of birds visiting this particular wetland. Initially, this wetland was crowded by Eurasian coot and mohen, but now the entire community has been replaced by night heron and some raptors. This might be due to the fact initially the wetland was too shallow and not much depth, and there was so many hilly like regions inside as islands inside the wetland. But now, as the depth of the water body keep on increasing, the breeding grounds of those Eurasian goats and mohens has been destroyed. So now lies a full stretch of wetland where the majority of the species were night heron and raptors. In 2023, we have also cited the presence of a grey heron. So, as the wetland itself is not yet stabilized, the bird community also keeps on changing. But one particular visitor was not at all changed across the year. It was nothing but cormorant. Now, the formation of the wetland has made a profound impact not only on the human lives but also in the bird community. The particular wetland has attracted many visitors after its formation. Even people far away from other places come to visit this place and enjoy themselves with fishing. The particular barren land was not of much use in the olden days. It was unused by most people. Some also used this particular land for dumping their waste product. But now the productivity of the particular landscape has been increased a lot due to the formation of the wetland. So it is very clear that wetland improves the economy of the surrounding people, and it also increases the ecological equilibrium by increasing the biodiversity of the particular habitat. We all know that wetlands are the kidneys of earth which help in purifying the water and also do a great deal of work in nutrient recycling. The particular wetland that lies behind Periyar University is also involved in such important ecological processes. So, the presence of the particular lake behind a Periyar University, and that too because of anthropogenic activity, is so good. It is a solid evidence that human activity can bring forth a positive change in the biodiversity.
So with that, today's interaction with authors of some of the articles in new issue of Jalplavit is over. Anybody who wants to read this new issue is welcome to send a request to have a PDF of this new issue, or to one can also request a link to read this magazine in flipbook format, and we can even send both the things to a reader, that is PDF as well as link to read the magazine in flipbook format. Whosoever is interested in getting this new issue should send an email at few.ecology@gmail.com. With this, I also invite articles, research papers, observation notes, pictures of any aspect related with wetland, like waterbirds, herpetofauna, fish, or even some abiotic component for the next issue. That will be published in June 2023. So with that, I thank everybody for participating in this program of launching new issue of Jalplavit, and we will continue this kind of exercise for the next issues also. Till then, goodbye and good luck. Thank you.